you're not alone in this. You'll find hope. I found it. Don't get me wrong, it was insanely hard. But there's community out there. Stuff like that. You don't say that. A lot of women that have gone through this don't want to come out and talk about it because of the judgment and the wrong use of language in those conversations, because it's hurtful. This world that we live in is so far from perfect. It is full of sin. It is full of pain, guilt, all the stuff. Because of adoption, I was able to realign my life with His will. Don't be scared to be confident in sharing what God's doing in your life. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Journey After podcast. I'm your host, Jordan, and today I'm actually here solo, recording another Q&A podcast with questions that you guys have sent me, questions that other people have asked me just face to face that I think might be good to talk about. And as always, if you guys have questions of your own, always feel free to message me with those questions. I am happy to answer, because I always want somebody to answer my questions. And if I could go back in time, going through some of the things that I went through, I wish that I could have asked more and had somebody that I could ask. And so I want to be that person. I want to be able to answer those questions, comments, statements, things. You know what? There's a lot of fear sometimes to ask things that might, be more controversial or be scary, that you don't want someone to look at you the wrong way for asking that. Well, I'm not going to look at you that way. I will answer that. And, God's not going to look at you that way either. If you want to know something like, how do I navigate a relationship? How do I, have a conversation with someone that finds themselves in an unplanned pregnancy? If I am that person, like, what are the questions that I need to be asking? Who should I go talk to? Who do I seek? Those are the things that a lot of people sometimes are scared to talk about and scared to ask. And I'm here to share with you my journey of that and answer those kinds of questions. So I don't know, let's just jump into it. And I am excited to answer some really good, sometimes hard questions to talk about. But you know what? My story was given to me by God, and my testimony is something that the world and no one can take away from me. And I tell myself all the time, it would be selfish of me to keep this to myself, because I know that at least one person can be impacted. At least one person, I pray, can see Jesus in this. And my hope too is that if another girl finds themselves in my position, that they will choose life, and that there is another side of this journey. And my hope too is just one person can also see this to navigate not finding themselves in this situation. But yeah, I don't know. I'm here to share today, and I'm here to answer with the best of my ability, and to hopefully just continue reflecting God's love and strength and mercy and grace in my life, and navigating this journey after. So let's jump into it. One of the main questions I get a lot is, what is one main piece of advice that you would give to somebody that found themselves in an unplanned pregnancy? So when I found myself in this position, I didn't know what to do, which, if you're on the other side of the screen right now watching this, you might feel the exact same way. Or if you have a friend, a sibling, somebody that you know or close to that is going through something like this, this is something good for you to hear as well. I think the biggest thing that I would tell somebody would be to, one, find a pregnancy resource center around you. If you are scared to tell people right now, but you still want some help and guidance, or you need to see an ultrasound for the first time because you have people pushing you to choose abortion. Pregnancy resource centers are an amazing way to validate that life that is inside of you. You're going to have women there that are going to pour love onto you, that are going to show you all the options that are available to you. They're going to offer you a free ultrasound, to see and hear that baby's heartbeat. And they're going to offer classes for how to parent. They're going to have classes to share about what adoption is. Seek that out. There are tons in the community everywhere. Actually, I have a spot on my website that is under, I think, get supported or find support. And there's a section saying, I'm pregnant, what now? And under there, I have some links that will take you directly to a website that can locate all the pregnancy resource centers in the area that you're living. And so I think that's a beautiful resource. So definitely check that out if you find yourself sitting there staring at a pregnancy test, you feel alone, you feel scared. Go check that out. Go find a pregnancy resource center. You know, go find a church. That would be my other key advice would be go find a church community. A lot of people are so scared, which I was one of them too, to walk into the church young, pregnant, not married, and I was terrified. I was so scared that I wasn't going to be welcomed, that people were going to judge me. And, don't get me wrong, there is still judgment in the world because we're all sinners. But go find a community where those people are going to open their arms wide open for you and welcome you and love on you and pray for you and walk with you through this. That's what I did. I went to a church one day with a friend and I was welcomed with arms wide open. And so go find that. Go find that community. If you find yourself not seeking the Lord or understanding faith, then I encourage you to, think about that. Think about what your beliefs are in that way. And I'd encourage you to still sit there and pray and reach out to God. You're not alone in this. And if you question him or question, does God exist? Does God love me? I don't believe in God. I don't believe in like stuff like that. Like I believe in science. Well, I also encourage you to educate yourself on the other side. Go learn. And if you still feel that way, then you still feel that way. But I encourage you, if either side of this, you find yourself sitting in that position, I run towards people that are going to love on you and encourage you. And you'll find hope. I found it. It was really hard. Don't get me wrong. It was insanely hard. But there's community out there. There is people that will point you to the right things, that will hold your hand and walk you through this tough situation and help you navigate a pregnancy to bring life into the world. I guess my last piece of advice within that question would be, if you are abortion minded, I challenge you to go seek a pregnancy resource center, go to a clinic that offers free ultrasounds, go talk to somebody. Don't make an impulsive decision because other people are pushing you to do it or because you feel like you're not able to get through it. I promise you can. I'm not going to sit here and judge because who am I to judge when I'm just as equal with guilt and the choices that I've made as well. But I encourage and challenge you to really sit there and realize that there's a beautiful baby growing inside of you and that baby is alive. And before you make a decision, look at all those options as well. because you have a lot of people, no matter where you are, no matter how alone you feel, you have a community, whether that is here on earth or up in heaven. You have a God who is greater than all things, who can give you the ultimate strength and is not going to let you fail. And so I challenge you to think about that. I challenge you to seek out other options, because there are. And you do have the strength through Christ to overcome that. All right, another question I kind of get sometimes, I guess still revolving around my pregnancy, adoption, would be, how do you stay grounded, or how do you trust God? How do you still love God when you go through hard times? I think this kind of question really like kind of sits with, you know, if God is real, why does he let bad things happen to good people? And why would I trust him if he lets bad things happen to me? And how do I still put my faith in that? You know, a lot of people go through really hard things in this life. You know, this life on this earth was never promised to be easy. And so I think that we all lose sight of that so quickly because we're so focused on ourselves. We're so focused on things around us that make us happy and feel good that we lose sight of the fact that this world is not perfect. You know, none of us are perfect. And we so quickly point the finger to God and not want to stay grounded or not want to pursue and love him and trust him. And so I'd say it is hard. Like I just said, like nobody's path here was promised to be easy and simple. Our journeys are difficult. They're windy. You know, there's a lot of bumps in them. There's a lot of, you know, intersections where we can choose one way or the other. And my best encouragement in that is finding community, finding people that are going to help keep you grounded, that are going to remind you of truth. When you start to believe a lie, you reach out to somebody and say, hey, I'm believing this right now. Like, help me realize that this is a lie, like that I'm believing a lie. I've done that with some people before to help me when I'm sitting there in a hard time, like, hey, I'm believing this right now. I need you to like pray over this. I need you to contradict this with the word, with the truth. But it's still hard. And you have to find somebody that is somebody in your life that you would look up to, that you would take advice from, that is, you know, wise counsel, that is going to be leading with integrity and honor God and respect that and respect you. Outside of just having community to keep you grounded and on the right track, I think also you have to come to a realization that once you accept Christ and accept the salvation that one day when you die, we're going to go to heaven and have eternal life, I had to understand that this life here is so temporary. And every challenge I have, every painful moment that I feel is so temporary as well. And I'm not living for my life here. I'm living for my eternity in heaven. And when I try to separate my fleshly feelings, emotions, to hold on to what the Spirit is pulling me to and that I feel God is pulling me to, it helps me stay grounded in letting God guide me and not me guide myself. And so if I want to sit here and choose everything that I want, of course I'm not going to stay grounded in the hard times. Of course that I'm going to hiccup and have these hard things around me. But if I can, you know, submit to God every day and remove my fleshly desires and not let that lead me, but then let God and the Spirit lead me, you know, that's what's going to keep me grounded as well. Even on the days that I want to cry, even on the days that I, you know, feel like I have no strength or that I question, God, why? You know, those are the things that are going to continuously help me stay rooted, stay grounded in the truth, and put one foot in front of the other, walking on that narrow path towards eternity. So, yeah. So, honestly, answering some of these questions has made me reflect back on the first time I ever really started to share my story, and how hard that was. And honestly, one of my questions that I'm going to be sharing later that somebody had wrote and sent in to me kind of is why I struggled at first to reflect and share my story. I'm trying to think, honestly, of when the first time I remember like publicly sharing it with people probably was at a birth mom dinner that I attended with Brave Love. Shout out Brave Love. If you're a birth mom, go check them out. They are an amazing organization that loves and supports on birth moms, and they're amazing. So go check them out. Yeah, I think the first time that I ever shared my story was at the Brave Love birth mom dinner, at least to like a group of people. At least to like a group of people. Obviously, like friends and family in my life knew a lot about it during my pregnancy, a little bit afterwards. I will say, like, post placement, I really isolated myself. I really struggled to share, to even like look at anything. I cried at everything that I looked at. Yeah, it was really hard. I think the other time when I started to like just share it with like randomly with people, I went to this Girls Gone Bible little thingy that came here to Charlotte. And I remember at the end, like, they let everyone be able to go up and talk to them. And I was able to share, pretty sure it was with Ari a little bit, and messaged her about it. And it was so sweet to be able to share that. But I think it was easy for me to share that because I also didn't personally know her. And you know, she also is so grounded and rooted in Jesus that I knew that she wasn't going to judge me or look at me weird. There was also so many women there that I didn't even know if she would remember it, to be honest. So I felt comfortable sharing it. I was also able to share it with someone else at another conference, just to get prayer and counsel. That was actually Maddie Pruitt Trout. But that was easy because, again, like, I don't know them. I might never have seen them again, and they love Jesus, so I wasn't worried about judgment or shame or guilt or anything like that. But those were people that I didn't know that I shared it with. But sharing it with people my age is what was tricky. I still kept it pretty quiet for a while post placement. I was so nervous. But I think the first time that I really shared like detail about what God had been doing in my life and about my son and about being a birth mom was like around Christmas. And it was really hard. I was terrified. But I did it. And I can reflect back now on that. And I'm so thankful that I did that. I'm so thankful that I shared. I'm so glad that I was able to finally step into the voice that I had always wanted to have, but I was always too scared to use it, because of fear from others, judgment, shame. I was always so worried growing up about what people thought about me. I always wanted to please everybody. And a big thing that I came to realize in my pregnancy was I lived to serve an audience of one. You know, I'm not here to please you. I'm not here to please my neighbor or my friend, my future husband, my family. I'm not here to sit here and please and honor them like they're my God. No, I'm here to serve the one and true God and honor him. And so when you come to that realization, being worried about what people think about you starts to become so small. And yeah, some days it is still such a big thing because, again, we're human. I'm a female. Of course, I'm going to be nervous sometimes. And I mean, males probably think the same thing about what people think about them. If they look the right way, if they act the right way, if they say the right thing, if they have this, or that. But none of that goes with us to heaven. So I don't know about you, but I'm not going to sit here and try to please everybody because, one, you'll never reach that finish line. You will never fully satisfy, please anybody here on this earth. But you can please God by chasing Him and honoring Him because He's my audience of one. And by accepting Jesus and letting the Spirit guide us in our decisions, in our words, in our actions, that is us pleasing the Lord. That is us honoring Him and the will for our lives He has. And so stop caring about what people think about you. I'm going to tell myself that. I continue to tell myself that every day. Stop caring what people think about you. They're not your creator. They're not who you're going to spend eternity with that offered you that free gift of salvation. That's Jesus. He's the only one that can offer you that gift. Choose Him. Don't choose your neighbor. Sorry, another tangent again. But I mean, I'm just so adamant on that because I used to be so fixated on being so worried about what people thought about me. And so that's what made it really hard for me to share my story sometimes. But the question that I want to kind of tie into that is the controversial question that I was always scared to one day get asked, but obviously I have been asked. It was why I was hesitant at first to start sharing my story publicly. So the question that I feel like I was so nervous about getting asked was, why did you choose adoption? Why didn't you choose something else? Why didn't you get an abortion? Why didn't you keep your kid? I also hate it when people say, why didn't you keep him? Or why did you give him away? This is a big thing on my heart as well, as educating about how to talk about this, because no one will educate you about it unless you get thrown into that situation. So let's have a quick education talk real quick. When talking about adoption, whether you are talking to a birth mom, to adoptive parents, or an adopted child, never use the words, oh, your parents gave you away, or oh, they didn't want to keep you, or oh, those aren't your real parents, or oh, how dare you, why did you do that, or stuff like that. You don't say that. You do not say that. And you never look at a birth mom and say, oh, you gave your kid away. I'm sorry, but that is disrespectful. And I want to help change that. So here are the things to say and how to navigate those conversations. Because it is something that needs to be talked about. But let's talk about it respectfully. So to a birth mom, you placed your child. Tell me about that. Or not. You placed with a family unit. We didn't give our babies away. We placed them directly to a family unit. To an adopted child, you don't look at them and say, oh, those aren't your real parents. Oh, so your mom gave you away? Or no, those are my son's parents. I am his birth mom. Those are his parents. Parents that love him, support him, guide him. All other people's adoptive parents, those are their parents. That is their mom. That is their dad. And yes, they have birth parents. But that does not take away from the fact that that is their mother and father. So you do not disrespect that. You don't say that to adoptive families or to an adopted child. When we learn to use the right words in these conversations, it makes it a lot easier for someone like me, being a birth mom, to come out and talk about it. For another person to come out and talk about it. A lot of women that have gone through this don't want to come out and talk about it because of the judgment and the wrong use of language in those conversations, because it's hurtful. You know, we need to rethink how we talk about these things, and there needs to be more education about that. Not just for the people going through it, but for everybody, because it is a beautiful thing. And that's what I wanted help with. So that's my little teaching moment. I don't say that coming from a mean place, but it is something I'm very adamant about, is when you use the right language, it is so much easier to have these conversations. Everybody will feel so much more comfortable. They feel respected, they feel honored, and they don't feel like somebody's coming at them from like a hostile place. It's a conversation, and it's an okay conversation to have. But do it properly. Do it in the way that honors the Lord. Do it in the way that respects that other human being's life. So yeah. Basically, that is why I was nervous about having those conversations, by answering those questions. And until I kind of stepped back and was like, I'm not going to care about what people think, I wasn't able to really share my story, because getting asked those questions is really hard. But, that is a big misconception too about adoption, about open adoption, closed adoption, why I chose adoption. It is a beautiful option. And I don't know if I've said it on here or not, but I know that I've said this to a lot of people, is I believe that God blessed the world with adoption. And when I say that, this is what I mean. This world that we live in is so far from perfect. It is full of sin. It is full of pain, guilt, all the stuff. Sin. And because we live in that sinful world, nothing is going to be perfect. We're going to have fertility issues. We're going to have unplanned pregnancies. We're going to have abortion. We're going to have all these things because the world is sinful. My perspective is that God knew that this world was going to be full of sin, but was able to bless the world with something through the option of adoption. Ooh, the option of adoption. That's cute. But truly, because with that choice, even though, at least in my path through this, I got pregnant in a way that didn't honor the Lord, but I was able to still realign myself with that path by the choice that I made. And so I look at that as, if we lived in a perfect world, none of these things would be a thing. Adoption wouldn't be a thing. Abortion would not be a thing. Fertility issues, miscarriages, stuff like that would not be a thing. And so this choice is a blessing to continue to honor the Lord. It's not easy, but again, we live in a sinful world. But through that choice, I was able to answer a prayer. I was able to refine Jesus. I was able to honor the Lord by bringing life into the world that He created. And because of adoption, I was able to realign my life with His will. So another question that I've been asked recently that is a little more on the light side of things is, what has been the most amazing thing that's come out of hosting the Journey After podcast, and what are your plans with it? So when I get asked this, I have a hard time picking like one thing, because I feel like just everything about it just makes me so happy, and I feel so blessed. Being able to sit here and have conversations with people, to hear their stories, to hear their journeys, the before and now the after, is such a blessing. never did I think a year ago today I would be sitting here doing this. A year ago today, I was grieving. I was grieving really hard. And I could never have imagined that I would be sitting behind a microphone in a podcast studio sharing these things. I never thought that the journey after would come to life. And so that in itself is like a huge blessing and something that just makes me feel so amazing to know that if just one person can hear this and see Jesus, it makes it all worth it. And I don't know, like I've definitely encountered some amazing people. I've been able to connect with so many people in different areas of the country with different stories, to grow in that community. It's been amazing. And it's something that I never would have thought. And it's been really cool to see how God's been able to use this podcast to help me build that and to build community, to find people, to meet other birth moms, to meet adoptees, to connect with other people that have gone through trials and tribulations, and to reflect on how God has been so good. And honestly, like future plans, I don't know. I tell myself all the time, like I just walk through the door that God opens for me, and I just keep walking and going after wherever he keeps leading me. And I don't know. I obviously have so many dreams and desires for this, but I'm not sure what that's going to be yet. Um, I definitely want to continue expanding my brand. But yeah, I don't know what the plans are. I'm just trusting God one day at a time and letting him use me in any way that he can. But I guess the last thing too that I will say question wise is I get asked sometimes what's my advice for someone that wants to start sharing their story but is too scared. I feel like this kind of ties into some of the stuff that I've already kind of incorporated. I guess depending on what their story is, this advice may or may not fully connect with you. But I guess in my perspective, don't be scared to be confident in sharing what God's doing in your life. Because God's perfect. And he's not going to guide you somewhere that isn't his will. Obviously, we can choose to go somewhere else because we have free will. But God's never going to walk you into something that he can't get you out of, that he can't overcome. And don't be scared to share that. Don't care what people think. Don't listen, because whatever someone's saying, whether it's negative, judgmental, shaming, that's not from God. Those qualities are not of the Lord. So I encourage you to reflect on the truth in God's word and seek out his character. He is patient. He is gentle. He is kind. He is powerful. He is love. It doesn't say that he's going to hate us. God is love. So use that to be your confidence, to be your strength. And share. Whether that be to your neighbor, to your friend at school, to your Uber driver. I mean, I will talk to my Uber drivers. I will share with them. The person sitting next to you at the restaurant, somebody cashing you out at the store. Don't be scared. It can be small or it can be big. You can go up on a stage and share it at church. You can share it to your Bible study, to your teammates. But don't be scared to start somewhere. We all have testimonies. And never in this world can somebody take that away from you. God wrote that, and it's set in stone. That is yours that he wrote. So don't be scared to share that. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. But this was kind of fun. I think I might do this again. Honestly, I think that I'm going to be doing a Q&A once a month. So continue to drop questions. We can theme out these Q&As to be, more specified to specific topics. Please ask anything. There is no judgment. There is no condemnation. There is no shame here. So ask. Ask what you're scared to ask, because I will answer it. And I would be happy to answer it. And continuing to share my own experiences, I will be vulnerable. I will answer those questions, the personal questions about my life, because I know it could help somebody. So I'm not scared to share, so ask. But thank you guys for all those that submitted the questions for today. I really enjoyed this, and continue to like, subscribe, share, all the things. If you want to be a guest and sit here with me, fill out that form on my website. Shoot me a DM if you can't find it. I'll send it to you. If you want to be an intern, like my amazing editor, definitely reach out to me as well. I would love to have you join the team. But yeah, this has just been such a blessing. And we're coming up almost on 2 months full of doing this. Actually, by the time this is released, it will be officially a full 2 months of doing this podcast. And it has been a huge blessing in my life. And I thank you guys all for the support and the love that I have received. And I pray for you guys. I love you guys. I want to be friends with everyone that comes on here, and to continue to share that. It's opened a lot of amazing doors for me, and I'm so grateful that God has shown up in this way for me. So yeah, thank you guys for listening. Come back next week for another episode. Might have another guest on. But yeah, as always, it is not about where you've been, but where you're headed and your journey after. Bye. Love ya.